Welcome to the latest Evershed Sutherland Legal Insights podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 5 of the Evershed Sutherland Tech Talks podcast. My name is Nasser Ali Khassaouni. I'm the global head of AI and TMT. In today's episode, we want to focus on a major trend in the Gen AI world. We want to talk about AI agents, their potential to automate tasks, and the shift from augmentation to automation. We'll delve into the legal challenges and regulatory implications, as well as share some of our thoughts on the future outlook in this regard. I'm joined by an amazing panel of fellow partners on today's podcast. We have with us Simon Lightman, who leads our technology and outsourcing team. Simon advises on the procurement and licensing of AI systems. Hannah Mann is a partner in our employment, labor, and pensions group and advises clients on the evolving AI landscape as it relates to the workforce. Rachel Reed is our head of artificial intelligence in the US, where she plays a pivotal role in shaping legal strategies and policies related to AI adoption and advises many of our clients on major matters of AI law. And finally, joining us from the Netherlands, we have Olaf van Happeren, who is the head of our TMT practice in Europe and is entrenched in all things AI, not least the EU AI Act. So let's dive into this. AI agents, what are they? If I could start with you, Rachel, if you give us a brief explanation of what AI agents are and how they differ from traditional AI applications.
Certainly, Nasser, and thank you for that great introduction. So unlike traditional AI applications that require human input and oversight to function and are typically designed to perform specific tasks based on predefined rules and algorithms, AI agents are systems that are designed to perform tasks autonomously. So they can make decisions on their own, they can learn from their environment, and they can act without human intervention. So think of them as digital assistants that can handle both simple and some more complex tasks on their own. So the key differences, again, from AI agents and traditional AI are that the agents can operate independently and adapt to new situations, while traditional AI applications need human guidance and are typically limited to predefined tasks. AI agents can learn from their experiences and improve over time, whereas traditional AI typically does not have this capability. And AI agents are typically more flexible to perform a variety of tasks, whereas traditional AI applications are better suited for specific functions. So we're seeing agents do things like, again, autonomous task completion, enhanced customer service experiences, and in certain industries, we're seeing these integrated with robotics in industries like manufacturing and logistics.
Fascinating. Thanks a lot, Rachel. I mean, it's a great explanation of how AI agents work and how, in a way, they act in an independent manner, as it were. Olaf, if we can bring this even more to life, if you can give us some sort of real-life examples of AI agents and how we may interact with them.
Well, thank you, Nasser. I think the most important thing of those agents is that, they can do tasks and learn and also address multiple other applications. So what you see happening in, for example, the legal industry, our industry, is that AI assistants can handle first round negotiations. And but also in HR and recruitment, they're used to process by screening resumes, scheduling interviews, and even conducting initial interviews, and then reporting back to the head of HR. In e-commerce, we see agents enhancing personalization by recommending products and connecting to the advertising platform within a company. In supply chain, we see AI agents help in optimizing supply chain operations by predicting demand, managing inventory, even independently placing orders, and optimizing logistics. So it really is everywhere.
That's really, really interesting. And, with all the tasks that AI agents can take upon themselves, as it were, I'm I have a feeling there might be some legal challenges around the deployment of AI agents. Simon, you want to give us a flavor of that?
Thanks, Nasser. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's the autonomous nature that's the key differentiator. I think it's the autonomous action, the ability to take those action that both Rachel and Olaf mentioned earlier, and the ability for tools to make changes and take actions by themselves that amplifies but also accelerates some of the existing issues associated with responsible and legal use of AI. So, for example, increasing risks associated with an AI system, for example, in particular one that relies on generative AI, getting things wrong and hallucinating, and taking actions and taking steps based on those hallucinations that actually cause real harm to individuals. So that could range from anything from automatically rejecting a job applicant to accidentally sharing personal data or someone's IP with the wrong people. So I think a key legal question that arises from that autonomy is who is going to take responsibility? And assuming we're a long way off, if ever, from AI systems being granted a legal personality, for me, businesses really need to be thinking about context in which those agents are being deployed, what sorts of responsibilities it has to its customers, the public generally, business partners and regulators, and what does it need to do to make sure it stays on the right side from a legal risk perspective. So operationally, putting in place override mechanisms to human in the loop, but then also contractually, how is it dealing with those challenges and risks with its partners?
Well, actually, I mean, looking at that in more detail, as we all know, so far, the most comprehensive attempt at regulating AI is through the EU AI Act. So I was wondering, Olaf, if we take that and some of what Simon mentioned around the legal challenges, and how you counter that with things such as human control, etc. How do you see the EU AI Act addressing some of the AI agent challenges?
Well, thank you, Nasser. I think, first of all, an AI agent is an AI. I mean, it's not a combination of existing AI applications. It is in itself an AI. So companies need to be aware, users of an agent need to be aware that they need to follow the whole structure of the EU AI Act once they think of implementing such an agent. And I think especially because of what Simon mentioned on the fact that it's autonomous, that it's hard to track what it does, your risk assessment, what is always the first step in the EU AI Act is even more important than with sort of the regular one-track AIs that we're seeing at the moment. And especially because of that autonomy, you will see yourself landing into the prohibited AI practices much quicker by the use of agents. So that risk assessment is becoming extremely important. And also the high risk AI system category, where you will need to do rigorous testing and documentation and human oversight is going to be extremely important. And I'm quite sure that the regulators in the EU will especially focus on the use of AI agents because they can almost act as a black box algorithm that stays on learning. They will be absolutely the focus of regulatory attention.
That's very true, Olaf. I guess, as you said, because AI agents essentially are generative AI, so the regulations, the applicable rules in the EU AI Act will, I mean, the risks associated with that, the need to comply, the need to be AI literate, etc. All of that, those compliance requirements will only be heightened by by AI agents and the proliferation of AI agents.
Absolutely.
So moving on to Hannah, actually now, obviously with the generative AI and over the last 2 years or so, I mean, a lot of concern around the impact on the workforce. I feel that with AI agents, we're entering a kind of the next stage of generative AI, and there's bound to be significant effects on the workforce, particularly in terms of job displacement and also the need for new skill requirements. How do you see that playing out, Hannah?
Thanks, Nasser. I mean, I think it's fair to say that AI agents have the potential to reshape the global workforce. So I think we may see roles which can be more easily automated being displaced by AI agents. So, for example, those sort of process-driven administrative roles, customer service roles, and perhaps some manufacturing roles. I think there will also be significant opportunities for job creation. So according to the World Economic Forum Future of Jobs report from this year, 2025, by 2030, 92 million existing roles are expected to be displaced by AI and other tech, while 170 million new roles will be created. So these new job roles will likely demand new skill sets, increased IT proficiency. So for example, it's possible to envisage a future workplace where workers are tasked with managing a number of AI agents rather than traditional human employees. And obviously that will require a different skill set. An AI agent's capability will be vastly different from any human counterpart. Remembering, of course, that AI agents don't need to be paid a minimum wage, they don't need to take legal rest breaks, they don't need to take holiday, and of course, they don't even need to sleep. I think roles that are less likely to be automated include those more strategic roles and those involving complex kind of problem solving and decision making. So there may be an increased demand for these roles, and again, employees may need to adapt their skill sets. So I think to respond to that sort of changing landscape, employers must be ready to upskill, reskill and reshape their workforce to future-proof their organisation. So training development will clearly be key.
So basically, Hannah, in terms of strategies that businesses can adopt, I mean, it's very important that businesses are very proactive in managing the transition to a workforce that includes AI agents, as you said, that never sleep and can go without holidays and all of that.
So yeah, I think probably if I were to pick sort of 3 top tips for a business considering a transition to a workforce that includes AI agents, I would say start small as the first one. So new technology can feel obviously very overwhelming, and it can be difficult to envisage how you'll transition from your sort of current position to a world of work in which you're using AI agents to carry out some tasks. So if you start small, establish perhaps one use case, that may enable you to identify those initial risks, put in place the government strategies to manage those risks, and of course the wider employee relations impact. And then likewise, you'll be able to record the benefits from that one use case, and that then may enable you to get wider buy-in for further AI agent use cases. I think the second would be to focus on learning and development. As I mentioned, I think the job landscape as we know it looks like it's set to shift and new skill sets will be required. So training will be key to ensuring the workforce is ready to adapt to that change. So I think, companies need to think like, what is your workforce training plan and how is that linked to your business strategy? And then I think the final kind of top tip would be to be clear on the role of AI agents. So as with an ordinary employee, an AI agent will need a clear remit and goals. And it will be particularly important when you're using multiple AI agents. So each agent working as part of a wider team towards that sort of broader goal. So, that holistic customer service experience. So human employees must understand how their roles then interact with each AI agent. And as I mentioned earlier, and for managers, which agents they're managing or to select for a particular task.
Excellent. Thank you. That was very clear, Hannah. And actually continuing with that theme, Rachel, from a broader perspective, what risks do you see, and from a broader risks and compliance perspective, what risks are associated with AI agents and how can they be mitigated? Rachel?
Yeah, so we've spent a fair amount of time on the podcast sort of talking about some of the unique risks and explaining how AI agents are a little bit different from traditional generative AI solutions, but many of the risks are actually exactly the same. So starting with the data used for training, right? Is that data of good quality? Is it fit for purpose? So again, really understanding how your AI agent, even though it will continue to learn and evolve over time, how it was trained and making sure it was of good quality data. Bias and discrimination are risks with AI agents, just as they are with other types of generative AI technology. And again, that's both the training data and the data that it collects to sort of self-learn over time, really making sure that the model is not shifting or drifting in a way that increases harmful bias or is unfair or discriminatory. Model drift, as I just mentioned, again, also a risk with AI agents, that somehow the model becomes detached from its sort of original objectives, or again, with agents that they're learning from their own environment in ways that were not originally contemplated or intended. So these are still very complex technology systems. So I think really understanding how they were built and how they will evolve out of time. Inaccuracy, right? Outputs from generative AI and AI agents alike, there's this risk for inaccuracies, for hallucinations, things of that nature. Privacy risk, again, right? Depending on how the agent is interacting with the public, are the controls and guardrails really sufficient to make sure it's not collecting personal information that wasn't intended, or producing personal information as outputs, right? That it's not somehow putting together data that has been de-identified or aggregated and re-identifying it in a way that could run afoul of privacy laws. Cybersecurity risks, right? Again, something we talk about with generative AI more generally, but AI agents are externally facing in most instances, right? They're interacting with an external user. And so that opens the door for prompt engineering and other types of cyber risks that companies really need to be thoughtful about protecting against. So mitigation for these, again, broader, more general risks are the things that we always recommend, right? So thoroughly assessing with an AI impact assessment, the use case and the technology, making sure the model was built in accordance with one of these recognized frameworks, like the NIST AI risk management framework. So you're looking at things like safety, security, accuracy throughout the life cycle of the AI technology. And again, although we've said these operate autonomously, that does not mean that there is no human oversight or monitoring, again, across the course of the life cycle of the system. So there absolutely has to be ongoing monitoring, audits throughout, again, the life cycle of the AI agent.
Continuing with that theme, I know, Simon, you're dealing with many of our clients that are implementing AI agents, but when sort of listening to all of the above, what other tips would you give businesses in terms of how they can ensure compliance with regulations when implementing AI agents?
Well, I think first things first, it's understanding the legal and regulatory context in which the business sits. And there's an initial task, I think, for all businesses to understand and identify the regulations that apply to their use of AI agents, and that's often industry and location and sector specific. In many sectors and jurisdictions, the regulatory approach is really far from being settled. So keeping on top of any consultations, comments or approaches from regulators, including in some cases we're seeing publications about how those regulators are approaching their own deployment and use of agents and agentic AI, and that can be really instructive, I think, in terms of future gazing and seeing where things might be going. Obviously, in many jurisdictions, EU, for example, and anyone doing business in the EU, as Olaf's already touched on, we already have very detailed frameworks in the form of things like the EU AI Act. So that there is really an initial job of understanding and reading in and learning. And I think very much linked with pulling the right team together as well, because as a topic, I think AI is one of those relatively unique subjects that, from a compliance perspective and in understanding how you manage and deal with the regulatory requirements, it'll throw up challenges that need to be addressed in a very joined up way across the business. So businesses can expect to draw on not just the legal team in that context, but compliance, risk, privacy, the business units themselves, the development operations teams, procurements, and the list goes on. When we've been involved in these projects, really, it's very rare that you're just talking to one or two individuals within a business, or even, frankly, one or two individuals within external consulting or legal firms that get involved in these projects. And I think so the most successful businesses we're seeing in this space have really taken a step back and worked out, well, who do we need to bring in to that conversation? And I'll just sort of touch on, expand on what Rachel's already talked about in terms of the AI governance and training approaches, which I think are really key, because once you've established what you need to comply with, the question turns to how you're going to do that. And Rachel mentioned a couple of the sort of big name governance frameworks like NIST and ISO. One of the things that we've seen companies do really well is, again, taking the step back and looking at what are the processes that already exist within the business. There's a lot of regulation that already existed before we had AI and agentic AI. And how do you build in compliance with those regulations in a way that's tailored to your business and that leverages the processes, conversations, governance that already exists? And that's really, I think, crucial to winning the hearts and minds internally when you're actually rolling these things out and trying to put some governance around the deployment of AI in a way that allows you to meet the regulatory challenges.
Thanks a lot, Simon, and actually all our speakers. You've helped us bring AI agents to life for our listeners and the issues around it. So for every one of our speakers, one quick closing thought around, what one piece of advice you would give business if they're considering the implementation of AI agents, especially with the fast pace of development when it comes to these agents. So very, very quick last thoughts. Hannah?
Thanks, Nasser. So I think, as I said before, agentic AI has the potential to transform the world of work. Change can be daunting, but very much a positive mindset will be key to growth. So start small, think about how training sits alongside your strategy. And finally, how you're going to communicate that new technology to the wider workforce, and where necessary, inform and consult with the relevant employee representatives or work councils.
Excellent. Simon?
I'm going to go back to pulling the right team together. I think it's crucial.
Absolutely. Olaf?
Well, as Hannah said, start small, but be careful how you start. Agents are externally facing. A lot of big tech companies are launching studios where you can sort of construct your own agent. Be careful around giving people freedom to construct their own agents.
Last closing thoughts for you, Rachel.
Thank you, Nasser. My recommendation is to focus on use cases, right? And start with the problem you're trying to solve. A lot of companies look at AI agents and see the great, vast opportunities and kind of say, okay, let's figure out what we can do with this. That can get you into trouble for all of the reasons we spoke through today on the call. So I think about exactly what issue, where's your pain point, what issue you're trying to solve, and then build an agentic AI use case around that and go from there.
Brilliant. Well, that was a great quick fire round of last thoughts. I thought that was a fascinating discussion. I mean, if I could end with Hannah's very interesting statistic about the number of job opportunities or jobs that will be eradicated by AI and generative AI, but compare that with the higher number of opportunities that will come. We all have to adapt. We all have to think in a different way, whether we're lawyers or in other fields of work. AI agents are yet another trend within AI that's fast changing our world. But I think if we adopt a very careful approach, but also embrace this change in a thoughtful and deliberate manner, I think it will all end very well. So thank you all very much.
Thank you for listening to the Evershed Sutherland Legal Insights podcast.